August 25, 2017. The Gulf Coast braced itself as Hurricane Harvey churned towards Texas, a monstrous storm threatening to unleash unprecedented destruction. But amidst the rising winds and darkening skies, a different kind of storm was already brewing, one that would tragically claim a life before the hurricane even made landfall. That morning, in the quiet hours before the worst of the storm hit, Crystal McDowell sent a simple message to her ex-husband, Wayne McDowell. Did he have enough drinking water for their children? A mundane question in the face of an impending natural disaster. Shortly after, Crystal got into her black Mercedes-Benz and drove towards his house, a routine visit to pick up her kids. She had a busy day planned, a real estate showing, errands to run, the everyday tasks that make up a life. But Crystal McDowell would never arrive. Her phone went unanswered, and as the first heavy bands of rain began to fall, Crystal seemed to vanish without a trace. Her disappearance, initially perhaps lost in the chaos of the unfolding hurricane, would soon become a chilling mystery. It would take the silent testimony of hidden cameras, a child's heartbreaking secret, and a terrible discovery deep in the woods to finally expose the truth of what happened that day. This is the real story of Crystal McDowell and the moment her life was. Crystal McDowell was born on October 26, 1979, in Baytown, Texas. Her early years were marked by profound hardship. Raised by parents who struggled with addiction, Crystal's childhood lacked stability. Tragically, by the tender age of 11, she suffered an unimaginable loss, losing both her mother and father to apparent overdoses within months of each other. Taken in by her grandmother and later raised by her uncle, Jeff Walters, Crystal somehow navigated these early traumas. Despite the immense challenges, she was known for her radiant smile, striking blue eyes, and a spirit that could light up any room. She was driven, upbeat, and possessed an adventurous soul. This adventurous spirit led her to become a flight attendant, a career that perfectly suited her desire to explore. For years, she traveled the country, experiencing new places and meeting new people. It was during this time that Crystal met Wayne McDowell, a man 7 years her senior. Described as gentle and soft-spoken despite his imposing physical presence, Stephen captivated Crystal. After a period of dating, they married in April 2007. Stephen had a daughter from a previous marriage and worked as a shipping manager, but he struggled with maintaining consistent employment. This meant Crystal, with her successful career as a flight attendant, became the primary financial provider for their growing family. While Crystal thrived professionally, Stephen's instability created a noticeable imbalance in their relationship. The couple welcomed 2 children together. From the outside, their family life might have appeared harmonious. However, behind closed doors, tensions simmered. Sources close to Crystal indicate that Stephen became increasingly jealous, particularly concerning her frequent travel for work. He reportedly suspected her of having affairs during her flights, despite there being no evidence whatsoever of infidelity. Friends noted that Crystal deeply cherished her family and prioritized creating a stable home environment for her children, a stability she herself had been deprived of in her youth. In 2016, after 15 successful years in the skies, Crystal made a life-altering decision. She left her career as a flight attendant to join her family's real estate business. This move allowed her to spend more time with her children and offered a sense of permanence she deeply desired. Her uncle, Jeff, welcomed her into the 3rd generation of their family business. Crystal quickly excelled, her natural charm, professionalism, and dedication making her a rising star in the local real estate market. However, she confided in close friends that this career change also served a strategic purpose. She believed being rooted locally would strengthen her position in a potential custody battle with Stephen. By February 2017, the emotional strain on the marriage had become too much to bear. Crystal filed for divorce. On March 20th, a concerning incident occurred. Crystal called 911 to report that Stephen had made threats against her and their children. Authorities treated it as a precautionary matter, not a criminal one, as no physical harm had occurred. With no formal custody agreement in place, Stephen still had legal rights to be with his children. Officers attempted to contact him, but were unsuccessful. A few days later, he returned the children. Crystal, hoping to de-escalate the situation for the sake of her kids, decided not to press charges. Those close to her say she was determined to keep the divorce proceedings civil, prioritizing the well-being of her children above all else. Stephen's adult daughter, disturbed by her father's behavior, confronted him. He claimed to be enraged by alleged affairs Crystal had during their marriage, accusations her friends adamantly denied and believed to be unfounded. People familiar with the couple agreed that the relationship had been toxic for years. Even Stephen's daughter acknowledged the volatility of their marriage, despite her own positive relationship with Crystal. Despite the underlying tensions, the divorce was finalized in June 2017, appearing amicable on the surface. Crystal even helped Stephen find and purchase a new home while she worked on renovating her own. However, beneath this veneer of civility, deeper issues lingered. Crystal often cautioned her family against mentioning her plans or outings to Stephen, fearing his unpredictable reactions. Even innocent social activities could trigger his anger. Although legally divorced, Stephen seemed unable or unwilling to accept the reality of their separation. His social media activity revealed a disturbing pattern. He changed his profile picture to a tombstone, then to an image associated with Santa Muerte, before reverting to a photo of him and Crystal, his post painting a picture of a happy, intact family. Crystal, in a final attempt to foster a peaceful co-parenting relationship, even planned a cruise with Stephen and the children. But this attempt at closeness only seemed to blur the boundary. Then, in August 2017, Crystal's life took a new and hopeful turn. She met Paul, a local jeweler and fellow single parent. Paul was charismatic, driven, and shared Crystal's passion for travel and adventure. Their connection was instant, and for the first time in a long while, Crystal felt genuinely happy. While she shared her newfound joy with her family, she asked them to keep the relationship private from Stephen, still fearing his reaction to her moving on. But her happiness was too profound to keep entirely hidden. On August 23rd, just 2 days before she disappeared, Crystal posted on social media, "I have never been this happy. My heart is so full of joy. I never thought it was possible. God is so good." This public declaration of joy, a testament to her new beginning, would tragically precede the end of her life. 2 days later, on the morning of August 25th, as Hurricane Harvey loomed, Crystal woke up at Paul's house. At 7:01 a.m., she sent that fateful text message to Stephen, confirming she was on her way to pick up the children and asking about drinking water. Paul's home security cameras captured the last known images of Crystal alive, in the kitchen, then walking outside in her heels, phone in hand, as she got into her black Mercedes-Benz. She was never seen. As the day wore on and the storm intensified, Crystal's uncle, Jeff, grew increasingly concerned. They worked closely together, and it was unlike Crystal not to be in touch, especially when he called to inform her a house showing had been canceled due to the hurricane. When his calls went unanswered, Jeff reached out to Stephen. Stephen replied with a suspicious text message, purportedly from Crystal's phone at 9:30 a.m., stating she was heading to Dallas with the kids. Jeff immediately knew something was terribly wrong. Crystal never changed plans without telling him, and her phone was her lifeline, central to both her personal and professional life. Fearing the worst, Jeff reported Crystal missing before noon that same day. The following day, August 26th, even as floodwaters devastated the region, Jeff and 2 other family members confronted Stephen. Stephen claimed Crystal hadn't been to his house in over a week, but his young daughter innocently contradicted him, telling Jeff she had hugged her mother the day before. That same day, a sheriff's deputy conducted a welfare check at Stephen's home. Inside, they found Crystal's black dress in the washing machine, along with her purse and handbag, undeniable evidence that she had been there recently. For Jeff, who had helped raise Crystal, the truth was becoming horrifyingly clear. Stephen was involved in her disappearance. But the timing of Crystal's disappearance could not have been worse. Hurricane Harvey had thrown the entire region into chaos. Law enforcement officers, first responders, and even district officials were overwhelmed with emergency rescues and dealing with their own flooded homes. As a result, the investigation into Crystal's disappearance. Desperate for answers, Jeff turned to the media, hoping to raise awareness. But his efforts were largely drowned out by the round-the-clock coverage of the hurricane's devastation. Frustrated by the lack of progress from local authorities, he made the difficult decision to hire a private investigator. This move, however, sparked backlash. The local police chief and district attorney strongly objected, arguing that an outside investigator could compromise crucial evidence at Crystal's home. Tensions between the McDowell family, law enforcement, and even local Houston media escalated. Refusing to give up, Jeff and Crystal's new partner, Paul, teamed up. They raised a $15,000 reward for credible information and launched a social media campaign that finally began to draw public attention to Crystal's case. But in the eyes of some investigators, suspicion extended beyond Stephen to include both Jeff and Paul. Despite Jeff's relentless efforts to find his niece, law enforcement treated him with skepticism. Whispers about his private life, specifically his same-sex relationships in the conservative town of Baytown, reportedly colored the way some authorities viewed his involvement. The local police commander even publicly dismissed Jeff's concerns in a national broadcast, labeling him overly emotional and an obstacle to the investigation. Paul Hargrave also faced scrutiny. After a polygraph yielded inconclusive results, his credibility was questioned. He further complicated matters by sending surveillance footage from his home directly to news stations instead of initially providing it solely to law enforcement. Paul defended his actions, stating he felt ignored by the sheriff's office when he tried to provide the videos and felt compelled to go public. And then there was Stephen. Despite a history of emotionally manipulative behavior and threats of self-harm if Crystal left him, some investigators initially perceived him as polite, helpful, and cooperative, while family and friends painted a clear picture of a deeply unhealthy and controlling marriage. Authorities didn't immediately view Stephen as a potential threat or a man capable of seeking revenge over the divorce. That perspective began to shift dramatically on Tuesday, August 29th, as the floodwaters of Hurricane Harvey finally began to recede. A family friend spotted Crystal's black Mercedes-Benz parked outside a rundown motel, an area that had been flagged during the online search efforts. The car doors were unlocked, and the keys were found in the console. While investigators initially suspected it had been staged for theft, the flooded lot had made it inaccessible until the water receded. Surveillance footage from nearby businesses provided crucial clues. It showed Crystal's car entering the motel lot at 6:37 a.m. on August 26th, the day after she was last seen. Even more chillingly, just 5 hours later, Stephen was captured on camera at a nearby gas station. He didn't buy gas. Instead, he drove toward the motel, seemingly checking to see if the car remained untouched. Other surveillance footage from that same morning captured a hooded figure, matching Stephen's build, riding a bicycle through the rain near the motel. The pieces were starting to fit together, and for the first time, all eyes turned to Stephen, not as a grieving ex-husband, but as the prime suspect in a case that had remained shrouded in mystery for far too long. The investigation took a dramatic turn when surveillance footage from a Walmart located just across the highway from the motel, where Crystal's car was found, showed a man resembling Stephen McDowell purchasing a bicycle early on the morning of August 26th, 2000. He paid in cash, and the timing aligned perfectly with the sighting of the hooded figure on a bike near the scene. Despite this damning evidence, Stephen continued to deny any involvement in Crystal's disappearance. Authorities, citing a lack of direct proof at that moment, allowed him to return home with his children. Crystal's family was understandably outraged. Jeff, her uncle, reminded the district attorney of Crystal's previous report about Stephen threatening their children. To Jeff, Stephen's mental and emotional instability was undeniable, and leaving the children with him felt like a grave risk. It wasn't until September 8th, nearly 2 weeks after Crystal vanished, that the district attorney finally intervened. The children were placed in protective custody, and Stephen was brought in for questioning. Yet, even then, Stephen seemed to dictate the terms. He asked to return home for one final night to put things in order, promising to confess the next morning. Jeff and other loved ones were furious, fearing Stephen might take his own life to escape justice. But on September 9th, 2017, Stephen McDowell kept his word. He returned to the station and confessed to killing Crystal. He told investigators that during a heated argument, Crystal informed him she was taking her new boyfriend, Paul, on an upcoming family trip, effectively excluding him. This news, combined with the fact that she had just returned from spending time with Paul, sent Stephen into a rage. While their children slept upstairs, he attacked Crystal from behind and strangled her to death in the bedroom. After the murder, Stephen wrapped Crystal's body in a blanket, placed it in the trunk of his car, and before sunrise, drove to a wooded area near his home where he disposed of her. Even with the confession, Stephen refused to disclose the exact location of Crystal's body unless prosecutors agreed not to seek the death penalty. Given the damage caused by Hurricane Harvey and the time that had passed, authorities feared it would be impossible to locate Crystal without Stephen's cooperation. They agreed to the deal. Later that day, Stephen led authorities to a remote, overgrown area. Crystal's remains were found in an advanced state of decomposition. Stephen Wayne McDowell, then 44 years old, was charged with first-degree murder. Bail was set at $500,000, an amount he was unable to pay. Beyond the jealousy and rage, the case revealed a more sobering truth. Without Crystal's income, Stephen had no means of financial support for himself or his children. Justice, however, moved slowly. Stephen's trial didn't begin until June 2019. During that time, Stephen showed no remorse in court. He attempted to portray himself as a broken man who acted in a sudden fit of passion, a legal strategy in Texas that, if accepted, could drastically reduce his sentence. He even falsely alleged that Crystal's death resulted from a consensual encounter gone wrong. But the prosecution systematically dismantled this narrative, emphasizing the long-standing emotional abuse and control Stephen had exerted throughout their relationship. Stephen's legal team attempted to tarnish Crystal's reputation, introducing unverified texts and claims of infidelity. But those closest to her stood firm. Crystal's friends and family painted a very different picture of the woman they knew and loved. They testified about Crystal's vibrant personality, her caring nature, her deep commitment to her children, and the years of dysfunction and manipulation she had endured at Stephen. One of the most heartbreaking moments during the trial came when Mandy Avalos, Crystal's lifelong friend and the legal guardian of her children, took the stand and shared a devastating secret. In December 2017, months after Crystal's death, Maui, then just 5 years old, confided in Mandy that she was ready to reveal something important. Mandy, unsure what to expect, gently encouraged the little girl to speak. What she heard next was horrifying. Maui described waking up the morning her mother vanished. She recalled hearing her parents fighting. Wandering past the bathroom and into the bedroom, she saw Stephen push Crystal onto the bed and place his hands over her nose and mouth. Maui stood at the edge of the bed, watching as her mother looked at her until her eyes stopped moving. Then, Stephen turned to his daughter, told her to go upstairs, and chillingly warned her never to speak about what she had seen. Mandy immediately alerted authorities, and Maui was placed into trauma counseling, the emotional wounds running deep. Another key witness for the prosecution was Melissa Cherry, Crystal's cousin and close friend. She recalled helping Crystal move out of the home when tensions with Stephen became unbearable, and then helping her move back in when Stephen threatened to end his life if she didn't return. Cherry testified that after the divorce, Stephen continued his emotional manipulation, even starving himself to make Crystal feel responsible for his well-being. The day after Crystal went missing, Melissa and Jeff visited Stephen's home. He was pacing nervously, trembling, and crying. Maui, even then, told them she had seen her mom the day before, then pointed to a black dress in a closet and uttered the chilling words, "The bad spirits took her." The scene was undeniably disturbing. Melissa and Jeff immediately called the police from outside the home, desperately pleading with them to remove Stephen from the children's lives. But their pleas were ignored. Melissa also testified about the family cruise Stephen had proposed, a last-ditch effort, in her view, to stage a peaceful goodbye. Crystal reluctantly agreed, but set clear boundaries. No threats, no manipulation, no harm. As the trip neared, another argument, this time over money, convinced her to cancel. She realized Stephen wasn't genuinely trying to say goodbye. He wanted to win her back. Then came one of the most damning testimonies. An inmate who had shared a cell with Stephen revealed that Stephen had confessed in detail to killing Crystal. The motive? A text message from another man. The inmate recalled Stephen saying he used zip ties to bind Crystal's hands after she died, a detail only the forensic team had previously confirmed, information not publicly known. Officials from the Texas Department of Public Safety confirmed other pieces of Stephen's confession. He told them Crystal had arrived early on the morning of August 25th, 2017. They fought, and Crystal told him she never truly loved him and that he needed to move on. In a rage, he strangled her in the bedroom. The 5-day trial ended swiftly. After just 3.5 hours of deliberation, the jury found Stephen McDowell guilty of first-degree murder on September 10th, 2019. He was sentenced to 50 years in prison. He must serve at least 25 years before being eligible for parole, making his potential release date in 2042. Crystal's family was devastated by what they perceived as a lenient sentence. Her uncle, Jeff, voiced his anger in court, stating that Stephen deserved. Others were frustrated, believing a life sentence or the death penalty should have been options. But those have been taken off the table due to the deal Stephen struck in exchange for revealing where he had hidden Crystal's body. The family's biggest concern, however, wasn't the length of the sentence. It was the unimaginable emotional toll on Crystal's children. Despite being surrounded by love and support, Maui and Madden had suffered a loss and trauma most adults couldn't bear. Crystal had always centered her life around her children, and now they were left to navigate a world without her physical presence. By 2020, Mandy Avalos, who had taken in Crystal's children immediately after the murder, was taking legal steps to officially adopt them. Sources describe Mandy as Crystal's childhood best friend, while others claimed they had once been romantic partners. Regardless of the exact nature of their past relationship, Mandy remained Crystal's most trusted person, and her devotion to the children was unwavering. Now that you've heard the full, tragic story of Crystal McDowell, we want to know your thoughts. Do you believe Stephen McDowell received a just sentence for his crime? Share your opinion in the comments below. We read them all. Thank you for tuning in to Uncovered Crimes. If you're intrigued by mysteries and true crime stories from around the world, be sure to check out our channel, Uncovered Crimes, where we dive into gripping investigations from Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more